Hi, this is Gabe at fluentforever.com. In this second video, I'm going to introduce you to the rest of Korean's consonants. And this time, instead of starting with the hard stuff, let's start with the easy stuff. If you speak English, you already know more than half of these. We'll start with 6 consonants that are totally familiar, both in their sound and their IPA symbols.
There's B as in 재봉틀. There's G as in 고구마.
Incidentally, these last 2 sounds always show up between vowels or voiced consonants, things like M and N, and never at the beginning of a word. Next.
There's W as in 왕, as in 몸, as in 나비, and H as in 호박.
Korean's H also has an alternate, sort of weakened version when you're talking fast and you run into an H between vowels or voiced consonants.
Which you'll find in a word like 간호. It's not 간호, it's 간호.
The symbol we'll use for that H is an H with a curved line on top.
H, 간호. This symbol, which looks like a lowercase j, is Korean's 유, as in 용, or English's yard. And then comes as in Korean's 응급실, and English's ring.
This is an N produced with the back of your tongue instead of the front. You might notice that the letter that Korean's using for this is a circle. We talked about that circle in the first video as a placeholder letter. Basically, the way this works is that if you see that letter in the beginning of a syllable, it's silent and it acts as a placeholder. But if it's at the end of a syllable, then you'll pronounce it as as this back N. Now, let's get to a few consonants that are slight modifications on what you know already from English.
First is D as in 파도.
We already talked about this in the first video. Remember how Korean's T sounds are made with your tongue touching your upper teeth? Same thing applies here with Korean's D sound.
Korean has 이덕. English has 이덕.
As with B and G, the D sound also only shows up between vowels and voiced consonants. Next, let's talk about unreleased K, T, and P. The whole idea of an unreleased consonant is a pretty simple concept. So to explain it, let's talk about the word eat. At the end of that word, most of the time, you're going to put a fully aspirated T sound after it. Eat, t, eat. But sometimes you're not going to do that. You'll start that T, you'll put your tongue up behind your upper teeth and everything, but you won't blow air through it and pop your tongue open and make that whole T sound. You'll just say eat, freezing your tongue in that T position at the end of the word. Eat. This is an unreleased T. The released T sounds like eat, t, eat. And the unreleased one sounds like this. Eat, eat. Korean's final T's, K's, and P's are always unreleased.
So there's unreleased T, 읍 as in 속옷, unreleased K, 읍 as in worship, and unreleased P, 읍 as in web. Next, let's talk about 을 as in 일.
It's a familiar symbol in IPA, lowercase l, but it sounds a bit different from English. In English, when we say a word like eel, the back and front of your tongue both come up towards the roof of your mouth. Eel. But in Korean, only the tip of your tongue comes up, and it reaches just behind your front upper teeth.
일. English has eel, Korean 일.
Next, let's talk about S in Korean.
First one is s as in 새.
It shows up as a lowercase s in IPA with an aspiration mark next to it. To make this sound accurately, you're going to need to change a couple of things from how you pronounce an S in English. First off, the tongue is going to be in a slightly different spot. Instead of putting the tip of your tongue against your alveolar ridge, you'll let your tongue come further forward, kind of where the tip is near your bottom teeth. And so you'll actually make this sound. The tongue will compress against your mouth a little further back on your tongue. This has the effect of raising the pitch. You get s instead of s. Next, let's talk about that aspiration indicator. In the last video, we talked about how to aspirate consonants like P's, T's, and K's. Basically, you let air flow out of your mouth for a moment before you start the vowel. For this S, you're going to do the same thing, starting your vowel later than you would in English, but you'll also let more air out during the S than you would in English. And the way you do that is by letting your tongue relax a bit more in your mouth.
That gives you s instead of s. So Korean has some, and English has some. Some, some, s.
Korean has a second S.
The tense S, s, as in 쓰레기.
And just like the tense consonants from the last video, this one has absolutely no aspiration. You're going to start the vowel immediately. And the vowel is going to have a bit more energy behind it and sound higher pitched. Last, you'll maintain the tongue position we just talked about, so the consonant is also going to sound higher pitched than an English S.
So if you're comparing the two Korean S's, you have aspirated S as in sam, and the tense S as in sam. Sam, sam, S, S. And if you want to compare the tense S to English's S, there's Korean sum and English's sum. Sum, sum.
Those two S's have a slightly different sound when they come before an E vowel or the Y consonant. Remember in the last video when we compared the tongue position of English's ch sound to Korean's ch sound? Well, these two new sounds are made in that exact same spot. The only difference is that you're skipping the t sound in the beginning.
So aspirated S in front of an E sound turns into she, and tense S turns into she. That's she versus she. And if you'd like a comparison with English, we can compare English's she to Korean's she and she. She, she.
We can also take care of our second to last consonant in Korean in this exact same spot. Just like Korean's P, T, and K can become voiced when they show up between vowels and voiced consonants,
Korean's j does the same thing, so sounds like j as in tajo.
And last but not least, Korean's
R as in radio.
This R is formed in a totally different way than the English R. In English, when we say an R, we bunch up the back of our tongues and pull up the front of our tongues, and we say In Korean, you're leaving the back of your tongue down, tipping the front of your tongue up right behind where you say D.
So instead of English's dum or rum, you get rum. Dum, rum, rum.
Also, just to knock out a spelling rule early, generally you're going to run into this sound anytime you see Korean's R show up in the beginning of a syllable.
If it's at the end of the syllable, it'll be an L sound as in il. If it's in the beginning, it'll be an R sound, r, as in radio.
And incidentally, if you see two of them in a row, you're going to get a double L sound rather than some sort of LR combination thing.
Giving you words like 애벌레.
And with that, we've covered all of Korean's consonants. Phew. To quickly review, we had
B as in 재봉틀, G as in 고구마, W as in 왕, as in 몸, as in 나비, and H as in 호박.
We also covered a weakened version of H.
H as in 간호.
Then there was
U as in 용, as in 응급실, D as in 파도.
which is made a bit further forward in the mouth than English's D.
It was D instead of D.
Then we had the three unreleased consonants.
Unreleased T, as in 속옷. Unreleased K, as in worship. And unreleased P, as in web. Then came as in il. Aspirated S, as in 새. Tense S, as in 쓰레기.
The sh-like sounds, which showed up when either of Korean's S's came before either an E or a Y sound.
So there was aspirated she and tense she. Then came voice j, which showed up in tajo. And last but not least, Korean's r, as in radio.
Which was made by rapidly flipping your tongue up in the spot where you say D. And that is everything for Korean's consonants. Our next video will cover Korean's vowels.